Welcome back to the channel, guys. We're going to be doing a little bit more work today on the green Fiat. We're focusing on doing the brakes. So I'm going to be doing this all one man style. So what I've got around is I've got a pressure bleeding kit normally used for sort of ABS systems and stuff like that, and I've got a spare cap off a spare reservoir, because the reservoirs on these are absolutely tiny. Now the standard fitting on this pressure bleeder is a big old cap like that. So what I've done is I've removed the fitting from there, and it looks like I might be able to get that to go through there and actually seal properly to get pressure. That's my second sort of method of doing this. My first method is to go for the kind of easy bleed that runs off the pressure from a tyre. So I'm going to drill this to fit the tyre pressure one first of all, and if I can get enough tyre pressure to actually bleed the system, then I'll go like that. Otherwise what I'll do is I'll look at modifying this even further to seal in this, and then I'll be able to use the big hand pump for pressure. So I will just drill this out, and then we'll fit the pressure bleeding kit to that. Then what we'll do is we'll push the car back out, get the wheels off, get it on axle stands. I'll replace the two flex lines at the back, and then we will try and bleed the system and get a nice bit of positive pedal. Okay, so got it up on axle stands now, all four wheels. The fronts are already done, the flexi lines on there, but obviously I'm going to need it up like this to bleed the brakes anyway, so I might as well leave it here. As you can see, jack stands in that position at the back there and at the front. That should keep it nicely balanced. It certainly doesn't look like it's going light at the front, but I may well just put the jack up underneath at the back there, in case with most of the weight at the back it starts to go slightly light at the front, just for safety's sake, as normally you'd put the jack stand right there, but I normally put it underneath the spring pack, but that's kind of by the by for now. What we're looking at is these flex pipes up under here. Now they actually look pretty decent, but they do feel a little stiff, so they're probably a bit brittle, and I've got spares, so it's going to be worth changing them anyway. So what I'll do is I'll change these out, and then we will look at bleeding the brakes. The bleed nipples look all right, and we should be good for getting those out, and I'll see whether or not my easy bleed kit has gone together as well as I hope, and if it hasn't, well, it's going to be a case of getting somebody to sit in the car and pump the pedal in true old school style. But there we go, so we're ready to go now. So the ones that came out obviously look a lot worse than the ones that are back in with all the spring clips on there. I will repaint all of this sort of area black that's been covered by a bit of overspray, but other than that it's decent under there, and it's now time to finish off my pressure bleeding system and then get ready to fill her up with brake fluid. Well, that was somewhat successful. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of brake fluid on the floor. The homemade pressure bleeder did a bit of the job. There was a lot of messed up bleed valves on the back which needed taking out and cleaning, so we've sucked a whole ton of air in, and I'm going to have to go back and do it old school and get somebody to sit in it. So I've got to find somebody with some time, so it's going to be spending probably the next week sitting out here on axle stands until I can get somebody to come and sit in it and help me bleed it. So unfortunately it's probably not going to look quite as nice next time you see it, because it's going to be utterly drenched. So when I was filming at the end of yesterday, it'd been quite a long weekend. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to put this out, probably probably Sunday. It should be Sunday you're watching this. I was recording it the previous Sunday, where I had been doing the work on the blue car, okay, so the aborted rescue that you may have seen. And it slipped my mind that actually, by virtue of my day job, I have a few more days off. I've got a week off, and so therefore the car should not be standing outside getting drenched as I thought. I'll just flip the camera around. So last night, when I realised that, I went out and I did a couple of little jobs on it. So I just got rid of the overspray on the arches there. So where I'd painted it previously and had got green paint, there is now no longer green paint there, so it's cool, looks a little bit neater. At the same time, I used some old school graffiti remover and a bit of elbow grease to get rid of the overspray on the wheels there. I have a feeling on one of them, well, that's a good one. I have a feeling on this one might have to do a little bit of repainting, because actually we've got some blistering on the paint there, so that's ever so slightly annoying, because that's a job I really didn't want to have to redo, but there you go, such is life. Oh yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to redo some of the paint on these wheels. It's the job that just keeps on giving, isn't it? But before I put those back on, after I've painted them, they may have to come off again to be repainted. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I've got a heating engineer coming around today, do some work on the boiler, but after he has been and gone, I'm going to borrow somebody to sit in the car, pump the pedal and bleed the brakes, and then I am going to drill out that, because that, if I can get to it from the back, that's a snapped wheel bolt, and I don't really want a snapped wheel bolt, so I'm going to drill that one out and replace it. I'm also going to cut a bolt so I can adjust the gear linkage. So that's where we're at now. Not quite so bad as it was at the end of yesterday, and hopefully we'll catch up again this afternoon and I'll be able to finish the bleeding of the brakes and we'll be able to see where we're at. As I expected, when I jet washed them, you can see we've blasted off quite a lot of the paint there where the paint stripper had gone to work. In fairness, they look really pretty decent underneath there, so I will leave them out here to dry in what remains of the sun. Give them a going over with some Scotch-Brite to knock off the rest of the loose bits, because there are still some bits that we can peel off here, like that. And then eventually I will take them off again and repaint them, but for the moment, unfortunately, they're going to have to sit there and be a little rat look, but such is that. Also, I was at it, my detailing buddies will be dead impressed by the fact I actually gave the daily a wash for the first time in 2 years, using the detailer approved method of a bucket full of rainwater and a dirty old rag that I never changed, and my hose wouldn't reach the back, so I didn't even bother doing the back. And I do need to get some of the little bits of overspray of green paint off there. But other than that, that's probably the best that thing's looked in years, because it really is just a bit of a hack and needs to have a bit of love. Anyway, enough on that, because that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. So now that I've jet washed the driveway and got rid of all of the old brake fluid from yesterday, and the whole thing is nice and clean, I'm going to leave that to dry out for a little bit, and then we're going to get on with bleeding the brakes. Well, it's all bled now. I found out what the problem was, as I had my father-in-law in there pumping the pedal and I was bleeding it by hand. I worked out why it wasn't bleeding properly. It was nothing to do with the pressure bleeding system. Actually, on the driver's side front flexi hose, it's a banjo fitting, and I noticed that the copper washer that went between the banjo fitting and the drum itself had fallen off as I was installing it. So obviously every time you press the pedal, not only did brake fluid squirt out there, but air immediately sucked straight back in the gap. So now that's fixed. So we have brakes, which is good. So now that we've got brakes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it down, and as I drop it down, I am going to fit the top mounts back on here. I'm also going to put the reservoir cap back on there. That would be quite useful, so it doesn't slop out everywhere. But yeah, we've got brakes now, so that's another thing to tick off the list. I started drilling out these earlier on, and as you can see, this is almost fully drilled out, but it's still there. So I need to get a stud extractor on that, so the wheels will have to come off again, but hopefully not as often as they have been in the past. So I'll stick those top mounts on, I'll drop it off, and then we'll be able to get it back in the garage before it starts raining, so it has remained nice and dry. So having done the brakes, I've now found an additional bolt for the gear shifts. So let's see if we can get the gear linkage adjusted, or get it a little closer than it was. So I'll just undo these just a little bit, so we've got a little bit of movement in here. Okay, it doesn't want to go into second, but I wonder if that's because that's snagging on the battery cable. Okay, so we'll first, no second. Okay, we can get it in reverse, which is one thing. That's second. Can't get it in third. Can't get it in third. Can get it in fourth. Can get it in second. Can't get it in first. So let's think logically about this. If I can't get it in first, it means I can't push it far enough back. So that means this whole shift housing is going to need to come rearwards slightly. So pull that back a bit, tighten that down. Okay, first. Okay, now I can't get second. That's first. That's third. Can't get fourth. So it might have gone a little bit too far back. Move that forward a smidge. Okay, let's try that. Appreciate this is probably quite dull for watching, so I may stop filming in a minute. There's first. Oh, that might be second. That's third. That's possibly fourth. And that's possibly reverse. We're getting close anyway. So you get the picture. I'll stop doing that now. So there we go, that was a reasonably successful day. Actually, what I did forget to show is, if I just chuck this back, we can see that we have pedal. We have a solid pedal, and there's no pumping, so we're all good. So there we go. Some more of the little jobs on there. Brakes are done. Might need a little bit of adjustment, but fundamentally they're done. Gear linkage is 90% there. Really, I need to have the engine running to check that one fully, because I want to hear if it goes when I try and put it into gear. That's technical speak, that. Yeah, that's I think that's basically what we set out to do. Unfortunately, I did manage to destroy the finish on the wheels as I was doing something else, but they can live being a little bit rat look for the moment, and I've still yet to get a stud extractor on a couple of those wheel bolts. But other than that, we are good, and we're just going to wait on the blue car to come home so that I can nick the fuel tank. That's the one, nick the fuel tank from it. So if you enjoyed this video, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Till the next time, take care guys, see you later.